Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. It's the France 24 debate. Historic elections in Burma may yield an historic result. It's certainly looking like it from what we've seen so far. With us to talk about it from London, HNIN, campaign officer at Burma Campaign UK. Welcome back as well to David CAMROUX of the French Political Science Institute, Sciences Po, who just last week was still in Burma. This time you were just in the capital.
Yes, yes.
And does one get a distorted view?
Yes, you do get a distorted view because it's the Burma heartland, and there's great deal of enthusiasm for Aung San Suu Kyi, and it is the part of Myanmar that's most benefited from the transition.
I may have made a mistake there. I said the capital, but it's in Rangoon, of course.
Yes,
no longer
the economic capital.
Yeah.
But for the peasantry of Myanmar, not a great deal has changed in the last few years, and these are the people that have put so much hope in Aung San Suu Kyi. Will she be able to deliver? Will her party be able to deliver? It depends on the degree of patience of the people in Myanmar. I was struck by the kind of, as Newman was suggesting, this kind of prudent sort of optimism that they know that there are challenges ahead, so people aren't expecting a sort of a miracle overnight.
All right, KHIN from the Burmese Rohingya organization UK also joins us. Is it the same for you, Thun, or have you been at the same time enthusiastic, but then reining yourself in when you see these results come in?
For me, as a Rohingya, I'm not that much, but we still hope some positive step will be, but for the country as a whole. But for the Rohingya, we have not seen anything NLD have spoken, where international legal experts are saying today in 21st century Rohingya people are facing genocide. They have found the evidence of occurring genocide against Rohingya people. NLD have not spoken yet. Instead, they mention it is exaggerating, in their news. That's what they mention, according to some, press conference that Aung San Suu Kyi mentioned. But for me, some little bit of human rights violation must maybe improve. As a whole Rohingya situation, I think there is not that much hope.
Right, we're going to pick up on that point. We're going to pick up on that point in just one moment. But let me first ask HNIN, we were talking before the break, your father, one of the Generation 88 student leaders, he was not able to stand as a candidate, possibly, you say, because of the fact that he too is a Muslim. Have you spoken to him since the vote? What's his reaction to what's going on?
I've been trying to get hold of him. He's been really busy going on the ground and monitoring the votes, and he voted, of course. And I would say, a lot of people are very excited about it. What's your view on it? And he said, we need to be very realistic. So he was saying, it's still a very long way to go, and there are still, there are problems with political prisoners. His colleagues and his, friends are still in prison, and he's trying to work for that. So he's saying it's really good that this is happening, but at the same time, let's not get carried away, and let's focus on what we need to do next and what we need, So he said we need to change the 2008 constitution. Without changing that, with that constitution in our country, we will never get genuine democracy. And I agree with him completely.
David CAMROUX, can you change the constitution?
It's going to be difficult because of the 25% blockage from the military. It may be possible further down the track. That is one of the difficulties to be faced. The other is the ceasefire agreements need to be completed. The present government negotiated with 15 or 20 of the groups ceasefire agreements with only 8 of them, particularly those in the south. And this needs to be completed because we need to know which sort of system, federal system, that will be the appropriate for Myanmar tomorrow. The other thing that occurred during the elections, which explains why the NLD didn't present Muslim candidates, is that Aung San Suu Kyi became the victim of attacks by 2 ethno-nationalist religious Buddhist groups, one Mabata led by Mankorowiratu in Mandalay and another called 969, who accused her of being too friendly to Muslims. She didn't really campaign much in Rakhine State. She's been criticized for this. There were as a political scientist, I understand the reasons why this occurred because she was in a Burma constituency. But one hopes that once in her party's in power, that they will have, if you like, the political capital to take this horrendous problem head on.
All right, so the opening up of Burma also coinciding with that rise that you mentioned of Buddhist hardliners, the country's Muslim minority sidelined, as we've mentioned, and in particular the Rohingya, who've lived in Burma for centuries, but just in the past year have been stripped of their right to vote. Alexander Alcott has more.
The plight of Burma's Muslim minority remains a blot on what is billed as the country's first free and fair election in 25 years. Radical Buddhist monks have stoked anti-Muslim sentiments leading up to the vote. Many Rohingya held temporary citizenship documents until February, when President Thein Sein abruptly announced the cards would be nullified.
Prior to the election, more than 700,000 holders of a kind of registration known as a temporary registration card. It was a document that had allowed Rohingya to vote in the previous elections, and it was a document that allowed them to vote but did not confer full citizenship. Those white cards, as they were known, were held to be unconstitutional earlier this year and taken away from more than 700,000 people, 500,000 of whom were Rohingya. So that was a huge number of people who lost the right to vote.
Even Aung San Suu Kyi's NLD party is not fielding any Muslim candidates, citing political reasons. Although some of the Muslims who have had the chance to vote say the elections give them hope.
The new leader is going to change what's happening now. I think he or she will do the utmost to bring about what's best for us.
Through these elections, we will see more change in the area of human rights. Our country will develop more. I come here to vote with the belief that our situation will improve, especially in the area of human rights.
Tensions remain high in the country where anti-Muslim hatred has sparked violence, most notably in 2012, when hundreds of Rohingya were killed in the western state of KHIN, while an estimated 100,000 were forced from their homes.
Let me ask you, KHIN, how do you explain this rise of anti-Rohingya violence, the taking away of voter cards? Why, in your opinion?
This is systematic plan. The government have long time plan to eliminate the whole Rohingya minority in Burma. It's going many decades, but after President Thein Sein came to power is the worst situation we are facing. And actually anti-Rohingya campaign as a result, 160,000 Rohingya become IDPs, and it brought up international attention, and international legal experts have found that the recently Yale School, Queen Mary University of London, Al Jazeera genocide agenda, 45 Rights have found evidence of genocide going on against Rohingya people of
why?
Burma.
Why? How do you explain it?
This is religious and ethnic persecution. It's a kind of racism, ultra-nationalism, and because of, Rohingyas are different appearance compared with other ethnic people of Burma, and they are Muslim, and it's a political, ethnic, religious persecution against the people. So they are, treating Rohingyas as an aliens. They don't want them. Even though, historically Rohingyas are living early 7th century AD in Burma, the government deny, their ethnic rights, citizenship rights, and so on. So this is a kind of a big hatred against Rohingya Muslims in Burma. They just want, they do not want Rohingyas in Burma. That is the point. So they just want to cleanse the whole people.
David CAMROUX.
There is in Myanmar a Burma sense of superiority. If I can make a parallel, it's a bit like the Han Chinese that think that they are the ones who embody all that is Burmese, to be Buddhist, to speak the Burmese language. And this is something firmly ingrained. I've seen quotations of people of that Burma majority living outside of Myanmar who realised this sort of ingrained racism that there is, and the liberalisation, the freedom from fear that Aung San Suu Kyi talked about, also allowed the cover to be taken off the what you call it, the pot, so to speak. and allow this sort of hatred to be expressed, through social media and through other forms.
Wei Hin, do you share David CAMROUX's hope that now that the elections have passed, we'll hear more from Aung San Suu Kyi on this?
Hopefully, I hope that, because, she represents so much for Burma, and she should be speaking out about human rights abuses, and also she should be speaking out about the minorities in the country. So hopefully, of course, we have to remember that she has to become a proper politician, so there will be things that she won't be speaking out about. And so, that we have to go back to the whole parliament and the constitution thing, because the human rights abuses will continue even after she get NLD into the parliament, because NLD will have a very limited power of it, and they won't be able to control the police, they won't be able to control the military. So the military can continue attacking the ethnic minority and can continue discriminating against Rohingya. Even on the election day, we got reports that 2 people were killed in Shan State by the Burmese army. So those things can continue, and it will be out of her control to do that. So that's one of her priorities, that she's been talking about changing the constitution. Of course, it will take a long time, and hopefully she will be able to mobilize the population in the country, and she will be able to give encouragement for people to talk more about it and discuss more about it in the future.
Sanctions have not been fully lifted, but we did see a partial lifting of them that went quite quickly back in 2010, 2011, when there was the opening up. Wei Hin, has the West reacted the right way?
Burma was, compared to other countries in Southeast Asia, Burma was falling far behind any other countries in terms of economy, in terms of human rights or anything. So we are a very proud people, and it's very embarrassing especially for Burmese, military generals. So they decided to change something, at the same time keep their own power. So they planned it really well, and they decided to make this constitution. And they don't like Aung San Suu Kyi. So they deliberately and they desperately put that clause which bar from, her from becoming a president. So they try to introduce some changes. So, for example, my dad was released in 2012 as part of their reform process, but he was released. He and other political prisoners were released under parole, and all the repressive laws still remain in place, and there are still so many political prisoners. But international community would say, let's drop all the sanctions and at least they are making changes. Let's recognize that. And now all the human rights abuses continue, and international community are ignoring about them. And thing is really appalling. For Burmese, I don't want 10% freedom and democracy in my country, and I want 100% freedom, and I think we deserve it. It doesn't matter which country we live in.
All right, David CAMROUX, we've been talking about this very point together about perhaps people in the West too quick to label this a good news story, but it is nonetheless.
It is, yes, but
part of the good news is that we've seen since the partial lifting of those sanctions, growth, lots of it.
Yes, unequal growth, because it's been mainly concentrated in the cities, and I think this is one of the important things.
Foreign capital coming in.
Yes, but Aung San Suu Kyi is talking about the importance of developing the agricultural areas where the majority of the population lives. It's important that the international community continues to be very interested in what's happening in Myanmar. That there's not a blank check that's been given. It's also important because the military must feel that they've got something to gain from this sorts of transition, and that they, like their equivalents in Indonesia, will one day step down. The Indonesians had also 25% in the seats in parliament at the time of Suharto, and gradually that proportion was reduced to 0 when the military also became more educated in what their real role as professionals should be in a flourishing democracy. So political transitions are lengthy processes. They take decades, a generation. Myanmar has also got enormous problems of human capital. The education system has been appalling for generations, have been sacrificed without a decent education. That needs to be dealt with. Without the capacity to bring about change, it's going to be difficult.
All right. There's been a lot of excitement this Monday looking at the results from viewers. Burma, a story fit for the silver screen. We mentioned how Aung San Suu Kyi is a figure that has resonated around the world. In 2011, just when the regime was opening up, French director Luc Besson casting Michelle Yeoh to play Aung San Suu Kyi in The Lady. I'm sure that David remembers 1995 when she was under house arrest, Hollywood visiting the crackdown in Rangoon, a movie starring Patricia Arquette. This love that a lot of people have for Burma is closely tied to Aung San Suu Kyi.
But it's also doing the Burmese people a disservice, this idealization of one individual. We've got to think about what happens afterwards. She's mortal like us all. She's 70 years old. The Burmese opposition had this wonderful opportunity. They had this figure who's a kind of a combination of Mother Teresa, Madonna, Gandhi, and John F. Kennedy all together. And she was idolized. And we were disappointed when she became a politician, but that was inevitable. She's a politician. She wants to run her country. So we need to have a concern for all of the Burmese people. This is a victory for the Burmese people. They are the real winners in this process, this new step forward, this historic election. And we need to be thinking about, the future rather than dwelling on the past.
HNIN, tell it to us straight here. When people say, "Oh, you're from Burma," oh, Aung San Suu Kyi, are you proud or annoyed when people quickly associate her name to the country?
I have to, whenever people ask me where I was from, when I say Burma, of course they associate Burma with Aung San Suu Kyi. So I have to explain that, of course, she is our opposition leader. But at the same time, I have to tell them that Burma is much more than Aung San Suu Kyi. Because when she was released from house arrest, a lot of people think Burma was fine. But so I had to tell people that, no, there are so many problems in the country. And she's just an icon of Burma. But Burma is much more complicated and much more broader than Aung San Suu Kyi. So it has to go with a lot of explanation whenever I talk about where I come from.
A lot of explanation, and you haven't told us, what do you think of her?
For me, of course, as other Burmese people, I called her Mother Suu, and she is she's an icon of hope, and I really recognize her strength and commitment in what she wants to do. But as a Burmese, at the same time, I'm a Muslim, so I found it a little bit just disappointed when she didn't speak out about the Muslim minorities, and when there wasn't any Muslim candidates in NLD for, of course, various reasons that we talked about. But I was quite disappointed. But hopefully, now that NLD might be in the government, hopefully she will be able to change that. Maybe she will be able to start talking about the Muslim minority. She will be able to include Muslim people in the government. So I still have some hope, but she's just a human being, and so I need to be realistic at the same time.
KHIN, do you share that hope?
As a Rohingya, I had a big hope since I was young on Aung San Suu Kyi, because our Rohingya parties were alliance with NLD after 1990 election, But it's been a long time. Rohingya have been supported her, for her release. Rohingya were campaigning in overseas countries, including US, UK, EU, and other countries. Rohingya were campaigning for her. But the big thing came to our mind is when 2012 violence happened, like Human Rights Watch have a well-documented ethnic cleansing against Rohingya is going on. But it's very disappointing to me, and including other Rohingya, she dismissed ethnic cleansing. And, as a Nobel Prize winner, Peace Prize winner, she did not even speak up a single thing that as a Rohingya, the Rohingyas are at least human beings, she should speak up. She is an icon for Burma. Anti-Rohingya campaign were brought up as a whole country. She did not even say a single word on our people. So is really, really, hurting, to Rohingya people, including me, So whatever happened, but we hope for the best. Something I hope she might be able to do something for the Rohingya people.
To speak out more. Let me just ask David.
Not she can speak up. If she might be a government, she have to restore the rights of the Rohingya if she will govern the country, because Rohingya have the ethnic right, citizenship right is being stripped off, taken away, and this is
to restore their rights. Let me just ask David
The
Cameron.
first time in history, let me finish. The first time in history, Rohingyas were not allowed to vote in Burma. So this election to 8th November is a black day and an unforgettable day. Our whole Rohingya people in Burma. So
Right.
while she's celebrating her winning victory, she have to remember that though, for the minority people, where 1.3 million
She has to restore
Rohingyas
the
are
rights, you're
facing
saying,
that.
of the Rohingya. David Cameron, let me ask you one last question here. Burma that opens up, you were mentioning that could follow perhaps the path of a country like Indonesia, that after years of military rule did open up and did become a multi-party democracy. What would it mean for the region as a whole, the country that's right in the heart of Southeast Asia?
It would be important. I mean, the Indonesian example shows that a democratic transition also requires decentralization, requires giving powers to the local people, including the ethnic minorities, including the Rohingya, and restoring their rights. This is essential and also giving economic power to the other minority groups. And it will mean something important insofar as Thailand used to be the pin-up child, so to speak, of democratization in Southeast Asia. We've seen that Thailand's gone backwards. That's a salutary lesson. There have been two coups d'etat. That there's nothing inevitable about a democratic transition. And this is why there's a need for inclusiveness. There is a need for the international community to have a lucid and not naive view of what is happening, and to continue to support this transition.
All right, David Cameron, I want to thank you. I want to thank KHIN and HNIN for being with us from London. Stay with us. Our Media Watch segment is next. And we say hello to James Creedon.
Hi, Francois. Just a quick look at how it's been playing out on social media. Apart from a lot of headlines about the ruling party conceding defeat, we've been seeing on social media also a lot of photos of rather jubilant Burmese who have been voting. And indeed, the Le Monde has put together a catalogue of the voting day and images of Burmese people participating in that democratic process. So you can see a lot of those images have been on the websites such as Le Monde's, but not just. This is actually a photo essay by AP, Associated Press. Now, elsewhere, others have been digging out this cover from Time magazine going back to 1990, the last time that there were elections in Burma. And the question that was asked then remains relevant today: will she rule? And so that question is again being posed on social media today. The people seem to be pretty certain of that, with a lot of celebrations outside the National League for Democracy headquarters in Yangon. And indeed, you can see other images such as those doing the rounds of social media under the hashtag Myanmar election. The Guardian, for its part, is a little bit, I suppose, signals a couple of concerns, saying that her enemies from the junta era still hold the keys to power. The key question is whether the men in uniform will accept the people's verdict and allow her to govern. They claim they will. Others, such as John Williams here, quoting Aung San Suu Kyi herself as regards that particular concern: the loser must face loss bravely and calmly, while the winner must be humble and very magnanimous. So rather lofty sentiments, Francois, but I suppose it awaits to be seen whether that will all come to pass. Now, the New York Times cataloguing some of those restrictions being placed on Aung San Suu Kyi, as other media have been doing as well. Chiefly, of course, the fact that she is married to a foreign citizen. Her children, two of her children, hold foreign nationality. And well, the generals wrote a clause into the constitution banning anyone who is married to a foreign citizen from becoming president. Now, she herself has said that if she is running the government, she would be above the president. So almost dismissing the necessity to occupy that particular office. But concerns certainly about how it will all play out being outlined in this particular article. Also concerns about Aung San Suu Kyi herself, that scepticism might have to be overcome by the elites in Myanmar about what many describe as a domineering management style and a lack of experience in an executive role. So while it's easy to see her as an icon, as much of the global or much of the Western press does, as signified in that Time front cover, there are also concerns about her in Myanmar.
Is she a coalition builder? You were talking about the need to build a coalition.
She's been criticised for having a tendency to micromanage, and she does behave a bit like a school teacher. And foreign businessmen complain that she doesn't listen. I mean, when they're suggesting things that should be done. Sean Tonnell is a friend of mine who's her economic advisor and business advisor, a specialist on the Myanmar economy, is more sanguine on that fact. But sure, I mean, it's not just her. This is too much is relying on her. This is the whole problem. I mean, we don't know who she's going to present as a candidate, and we don't know who's actually going to be in that government, and they're going to be people that don't have executive experience simply because they've not had a chance for almost 50 years.
All right, a successful leader, one who delegates. David CAMROUX, I want to thank you. I want to thank James Creedon. Thank you for joining us here for the France 24 debate.